So now we're going to go through some security specific and price discovery analysis functions on the terminal. So to start, we're just going to look at the DES page, so the DES function here with a Verizon bond loaded. Here on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of different links that'll bring you to specific functions as well as in the middle of the screen, you can see some just overview information on the particular issuer we're looking at here. So in this case, if you were to click into that CF function on the left, you would actually be able to see different documents and term sheets related to that bond that you can use to download. Moving on, we're going to look at the fixed income price discovery function. The code for this would be FIPX. And similar to DES, this page is going to consolidate all of Bloomberg's price discovery functions onto a single screen. So it'll give you an idea of all the pricing data you're going to need to evaluate this bond, and then analyze whether you should trade it or just determining like levels that the bond is trading at. So you'll see we have links to functions like QMGR or AllQ and TDH, so you can get an idea about the specific quotes or trades that are related to this specific index security. And then on the right-hand side, you'll actually be able to get a visual representation using those spread or intraday charts as well. And now we're going to move on to bval, which was a quick function link on that screen as well. Here we can see transparency into the particular bval price, which is just going to be calculated based off of direct market observations from different sources, as well as some like observable comparables in the market to derive that final bval price. All of the methodology behind bval pricing can be found in the bvli function as well. And then on the left-hand side of the screen that's highlighted, you'll see this bval price and bval score. Bval is going to basically assign a score to each price based off of the quantity and the quality of the market data that's going to be used in the models. So this score will range from 1 to 10, but a score of 9 in this screenshot just indicates that there was a lot of strong quality and quantity behind some of the direct observations or comparables that were used to derive the price. Moving on to TDH, which is just going to be our trade history function here, which was another link on that fixed income price discovery function. What you can do is you can load a particular security here and then see aggregated information in terms of the trades, as well as some different spread metrics depending on what view you're looking at. You can also adjust the source in the upper left-hand corner to different trace-related pricing sources or other volume data, volume reporting pricing sources here. So if you were to click into a particular row here, it would bring you to our QR screen. So then here you can actually see all of the different quotes over whatever time period you're looking at in the range set at the upper left-hand corner. And we can adjust the source here again. So in this case, we're looking at pricing source TRMT. TRMT is going to be for all trades, trades reported with a volume greater than 250,000. So you can narrow down what specific quotes, depending on what volume size you want to look at here. Here.
So, yeah, now we're going to be talking about, again, we have this relative value function. So I know that earlier we walked through it using Verizon US equity, but the screen looks very different when loading up a corporate bond. So what we're going to be able to see here is we're going to view the spread of this specific bond, and we can see this historically compared to a specific index, for example, in this case, the ll2 over that time period, which is around October 2021 to 4/25/2022. So we can view this graphically. And what we can also do is we can then view on the right-hand side a summary of the spreads, which will show you some further information on the mean, the median, and the average spread over time. The next function that we have is going to be our YES screen. So this is just the yield and spread analysis. Here we're able to just further evaluate for a specific bond the pricing as well as the credit risk and interest rate risk on the bond. So I can see in the upper left corner the spread, price, and yield, as well as all of my different spreads in the lower left corner. And then on the right-hand side, I'm able to also view some total return for the specific bond over a particular period. In this case, we have from March 2021 to April 2022 to view how the total return of this bond has been changing over time. Next, what I'm able to do is I'm able to also use this same bond to view the total return over a period of time while also using a horizon date. So I can see here that I have included on a settle date of April 27, 2022, and a horizon of 1 month out. What is the price going to be, and what will the yield be? As well as in the middle of the screen here, we can view the total return over that specific horizon period, and we can further change the date in order to see how this will be affected maybe over a longer period of time, how it changes over a shorter period of time, how that is also being affected, and it allows us to further dive into seeing the credit risk of this bond. So the next function that we have is going to be, again, HDS. We walked through this earlier with a specific Verizon US equity ticker, but in this case, what we have is that specific corporate bond. So I'm able to see that it may look a little bit different than the other screen, but we're able to see here that, again, we have Vanguard as one of the top holders of this specific bond. So this will not be including any of the other Verizon entities, any of Verizon's other bonds or loans or anything regarding the equity ticker. This is specifically for the Verizon bond maturing in 2051. So I can just see, like, who's taking a bullish position on this bond, and I'm able to see like who over time, what this looks like and how this list changes. The next function that I have available here is our CRPR function. So this will allow me to view different credit ratings for a specific bond. So I'm able to see a little bit more transparency into how credit ratings are changing, and I can see the creditworthiness of this issuer. So I know if it's a good idea or not to be investing in the bonds depending on their credit ratings, and I can just see some outlooks as well. So we have different data from Moody's, S&P, and Fitch here. We can click into all of these in order to get some further data as well. So if I wanted to find some more information on a specific bond, what I can do is I can load up CF, our company filings page, and I will be able to find the prospectus for a bond. So I can see here, this belongs to Verizon. I'm able to see some of the font is a little bit small here, but if we were reading it, we could see that it looks like they are offering about $750 million in floating rate notes due in 2024. So if you wanted to take a look and really get in the weeds on Verizon's bonds that they're issuing, you're able to view the prospectus released directly by them on CF.
So now that we know how to conduct single security analysis, we are going to move into some relative value functions to evaluate these bonds across their different peer groups. But first, we're going to cover SRCH, which is our main fixed income screening tool on the terminal. Here we can filter down based off of a specific inputs or universe that we're looking to generate an easily digestible universe to then conduct further analysis and spot different trade opportunities. What we can do here is we can select our specific asset classes in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. So if you were only interested in corporate bonds or muni bonds or things like that, you can make those different selections there. And then in the middle portion where you see that amber box, you can actually keyword search for terms that you want to screen for, things like callable or maturity or yield, and then set your different inputs. And then once you have your universe here, you can click into one results to see the full list, or click into some of those additional security related function links at the bottom to then source your universe into those functions as well. To use search capabilities, we actually don't need to actually run the function SRCH and then manually input our selections. We can actually use natural language processing to call the function and then specify what our inputs are going to be in the command line here. So in this screenshot, we have SRCH, so that's us calling the function, and then we're screening for USD denominated bonds that are investment grade and have a yield greater than 6. So if you run this input on any screen and hit enter, you will see that you'll see SRCH that will then manually put those inputs in for you so you don't have to do the selections yourself. And then in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see in white text what the search criteria we inputted was. And what's cool about this is you don't actually need to run the function. So in a matter of seconds, you've narrowed down a starting universe of over 3 million securities to 248 here. So then we can use this as a starting point to conduct further analysis here. So once we have all of our inputs selected here, we can click into one results. And then you'll see a screen like this where you'll have the full list of securities and then any columns that you have selected displayed as well. If you wanted to adjust the columns on the screen, you can just click into that amber box next to add column here and keyword search for things like coupon or yield, and then select from the autocomplete dropdown the corresponding columns. You can also export this list directly to Excel via that export function at the top. And then we can actually click into export here to source this list into different functions like FIW, which is our main relative value analysis tool on the terminal. So if I selected that option, I would see FIW, and then in the upper left-hand corner, you can see search results here. Here we are looking at the bond list tab and specifically the relative value function. So what the screen is going to do is it's going to apply whatever groupings you might have selected at the top left corner of the screen. So in this case, we're looking at Bloomberg composite rating and then also maturity. So that's what those groupings are in the middle of the screen. And then we can take a look at different spread in yield metrics and then again compare these against their historical averages. So in the middle portion of the screen, we're looking at G spread over a 6-month period here. And then we have those range bars just to get a quick visual at where spreads are trading. Moving on to our bond chart tab here, we can get a quick visual, again, based off of different groupings so that we can compare whatever our Y and X axes are set in the middle of the screen, so we can just get an idea of where these bonds are trading. So in this case, we're looking at still the Bloomberg composite ratings at the bottom of the screen, and then we're looking at different G spreads. So here we can spot where bonds are trading rich or cheap. So you may see some bonds of different rating buckets like A- or triple B trading at the same G spread, or spot maybe some outliers for a particular issuer, just so you can get an idea of where these different bonds are trading. So we can actually drill down further into specific securities that are listed in this bond chart tab. So if we were to hold down the control key and maybe select two of the bonds on this bond chart tab, we can then select our historical analysis functions and then select the HS function. So you wouldn't have to necessarily run the HS function in a separate window and then enter the two bonds by themselves. You can actually just do it directly from this FIW bond chart tab here. You can again adjust whatever fields you're looking at, but in this case, we're looking at bid yield to mature, bid yield to worst with BVAL as the specific pricing source across a 1-year time period, but you can adjust anywhere in amber on this screen to be based off of whatever inputs you'd like. Similar to that, same kind of workflow, we can select multiple bonds now, holding down the control key, and then plot their performance against selected bonds. So now we can compare the first bond we selected, which would be this Verizon bond, comparing their G spread across an average of all of the bonds that we selected. So you can just get an idea of where a particular bond is trading across maybe an average peer group here. From the FIW bond chart tab, we can also right-click on a particular bond and then click on the NIA function, or you can run this in a separate terminal window if you would like. But our NIA function is going to be our issuer curve function. So what it's going to do is, depending on whatever facets you have selected on the left-hand side, basically plot all of those bonds on a graph and then plot a regression curve, so you can get an idea maybe if there was a new bond that was coming to market or a different workout date. You can indicate where the yields may be trading at in the future. On the right hand side of the screen, we'll also be able to plot comparable issuers bonds and curves against the security in question, just so we can get an idea of where peers yields may be trading at to seek different investment opportunities. So to pop out these curves, what you would have to do is on the right hand side of the screen under issuer and comparable issuers, you would just have to be sure that that blue graphical icon where you see the charts is selected to turn those on. So in conjunction with FIW and NIA, we can also build our own curves. So what we can do is you can have your own set of universe, maybe through SRCH, and then you can run the CRV function to create a custom curve. So in this case, we have different curves we can select, but let's take an example using the fitted curve. So what this would do is it'll fit a constant maturity curve, and you can select what type of regression method you'd want to create that regression line. So once we select that option here, you'll see a screen like this. Here at the top, we can select whatever asset classes we were going to analyze, and then we can select our source for the securities we're going to use. So in this case, if I had already created a SRCH search, I would select bond search. And then in the next line where you see search, that amber drop down, you're actually be able to select the save search you may have created. And then underneath that, you can select what your X and Y axes are going to be in terms of the graph. But what you would do here is once you have all of your inputs selected, you would just hit construct curve at the top and then hit save so that you can save this custom curve. So then once you have the custom curve, you'll have the option to load it directly in our GC function. So here's an example of us loading our forward curve that we had just built and comparing it against a General Motors curve. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the curves and relative value section. Here you can add different fields that you'd want to look at, as well as different curves here. So in this case, we're looking at G-spread, but you can hit add field to adjust the field you're going to measure. And what's good about GC here compared to functions like NIA is that we can actually backdate on this screen. So in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, we have a specific date entered, July 1st, 2019. So we can compare where these curves are and their rates are at now compared to where they were historically, which is a limitation of our NIA function currently in terms of the historical backdating. So CRVF is going to house all of our fixed income curves on the terminal. Here we'll have different tabs at the top to break down whatever types of analysis you're looking to do. But you'll see all the way to the right, we have this custom curve section. That is going to be where we're able to see the custom curves we create in CRV directly. So you can click on that tab, select the curves, and then graph them directly to GC. Looking at another tab here, this is just going to be our credit tab. So similar to NIA and FIW again, we actually have some pre-built BVAL curves dependent on particular issuers. So if we're looking at the issuer sub-tab here, we can break this down by country as well as sector. And then we can see on the right-hand side all of the available curves for some of our largest corporate issuers. So in this case, we have IBM and Amazon bond yield curves as an example. So we can also come here to graph these particular curves. You would just have to select off as many as you'd want. And then in the bottom, you'll see that they move to the selected curve section. And then in the bottom left, you could click on one graph selected curves. So this will source your selections directly into GC for you.
Now for our last section, we're going to be talking about specifically default risk for specific bonds and the different functions that we have available on the terminal in order to analyze the probability of default for a specific entity. So the first function that we have available is our Bloomberg default risk function, which is DRSK. So what we can see here is this will just give us an overview of the credit health of a specific company. So for example, we have this Buckeye Partners bond in the upper left corner. What we're able to see is we are able to see the CDS spread. We're also able to see 1-year default risk along with the 1-year default probability. So this is us using a model to estimate the probability of default over the next year. This will also allow you to view different model inputs, such as a company's income versus their debts. And we can see on the bottom of the screen, we can also view this in a more sector-based comparison. So as you can see, it says there, sector comparison DRAM. So if we click into that, that'll bring us to our next slide. That is going to show us our DRAM function. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to show us some of the changes in creditworthiness of the positions on a specific bond. So for example, here we can see the Buckeye Partners issuer here, along with the default risk score and the likelihood of default in those range bars. So I can see here we have this from now to 90 days ago, and I can see that now for this specific entity, it is much lower of a likelihood for this entity to default than it was over the average of the past 90 days. You can also include a specific source here, so you can narrow it down by issuer, sector, etc., in order to make sure that you're looking at the exact list that you're interested in. So one of the last functions that we're going to be talking about today is our supply chain analysis function. So this is just SPLC. You can see here we have an Apple bond loaded, but we're also just using the Apple US equity ticker within this function. So we're going to be able to get more of a breakdown on a specific company to see the different exposure that the company has on its revenue, including all of its suppliers. So we could track its performance against some of its peers. So we could see on the left-hand side here, the 187 suppliers for Apple, as well as the 73 customers on the right-hand side, such as Verizon, AT&T, and more. We can change the date in the upper right corner in order to view some historical trends within the supply chain analysis of Apple. And we are able to click into all of these in order to get some more information on the specific parameters within a supplier or a customer here. So that will lead to the end of our webinar here. We have some of our contact information available here so that if anybody has any questions, they are more than welcome to reach out to all of us. Now, Stephen will take it off in order to give you guys some more information on if you want more of this PowerPoint sent to you or if you have any other follow-up questions.
Thank you, Sage. So thanks for bearing with us for this quite informative and robust webinar describing, I think fairly complete workflows, something that I think many of you are probably thinking about utilizing in this sort of market environment where interesting opportunities are arising just given the fact where, we're at different risk levels. Feel free to reach out to Rihanna, Sage, or me to get a copy of the webinar PowerPoint or the replay link. And if there's any further need for discussion about specific training that you like or any of the specific workflows that we described, again, we're here for that. And again, thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to meeting you on another webinar soon. Have a great day.